Hi everybody, this is Tina with Rehash Designs. Hope everybody's doing well. This is part 2 of our Easy Beginner Fall Journal. I decided I wanted to go ahead and put pockets on here. So I found a remnant piece of material and I'm going to go ahead and put in a pocket and I'm going to glue it and sew it. First I'm going to put some trim on. And this is just a piece going across the top. I'm not going to sew it. I'm just going to glue it. And honestly, you could glue the pocket on, but I am going to do a gluing and sewing to this. You could have done this when we were putting the whole journal together, but this is kind of an afterthought, and it's probably good that way people can see that you can do it that way. So anyway, I put the trim on the top, and I'm going to get ready to put it in there. It's a little bit bigger than I need. I always cut things a little bit bigger just so that I have room to maneuver a little bit. And anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put glue around it and let it dry and then sew and trim. So anyway, I'm just putting glue where you would be sewing later. And I always usually do that just kind of as a backup. I don't usually just sew. I usually glue and so the only thing I would say is always make sure your glue is completely dry because that's what gunks up your machine. It isn't really the paper that causes a problem. It's usually the glue. So I'm going to do that along the sides and then I'm going to go along the bottom. And I'm going to just sew over the lines that I already have. And yes, it looks a little messy that way, but I like it that way. I like that messy kind of sewing look. I am going to put a little bit of glue in the middle because I kind of want those pockets to be a little bit tight. And that will keep it kind of a little bit more snug. Okay, so anyway, I am going to go ahead and trim around that just to make it, even with the rest of the cover. And that's pretty easy to do. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside and we're going to start working on our papers. And the way that I do the papers is I have a total of 5 papers in an envelope that I'm going to put in my signature. And I decided to get 10 other sheets. I'm going to do a total of 15 pages in each signature. So that's 10 other not digital and then 5 digital. I usually don't put more than 5 digital in a signature. It's very rare that I do more than that. Often I do less. So I think it gives it a lot of interest to have a lot of different papers in there. So anyway, these are my 5 digitals, and then I have my envelope. The envelope's going to go in the middle, and I have another envelope here that we're going to use kind of as a page, and I'll show you how we do that. And if you see, I just have different types of music paper, ledger paper, tea-dyed paper, some just brown paper, some green paper, some vintage papers like Edith Holden and another Sears, and then of course my envelope. And the envelopes are good because it adds an additional pocket. Now this is my other signature. This is what I'm going to have in it, and I make sure that I don't have duplicate looking papers in each signature. I definitely don't want the same if I accidentally. Here's another larger little bag that I put in half, and then I've got these other papers. So you can see this is a dictionary page, another Edith Holden. And so what I do is I put my paper in stacks, and then I go ahead and I get everything ready. Like now I'm adding another envelope to this envelope that will make it a page. I'm just gluing the back of this envelope on to this other envelope. And what that'll do is that'll basically make a page. So there you go. And then the little middle flap, you can glue that down and then cover it. But I'm going to leave it as a flap because I'll show you later in the next video how we add a page to that. So that's just usually how I need it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fold the envelopes that we're going to put in the middle of our signature and get it ready to put in the signature. I'm going to go ahead and get it all folded because it's hard to do after it's already sewn in there. So now we don't put it together, we just fold it. And I do usually ink it at this point because trying to do it after the fact is hard. It's not impossible, but it is hard. So anyway, we do that all the way around and get that ready to put in there. And of course, I do the same thing to my other envelope that's going to go in my other signature. So get that all folded up, and again, don't glue it together. You have to have it open in order to put it in the middle of the signature. So that's what we do. And the one thing to remember when you're doing this is that when you put the envelope in there, you're not going to have any dangly strings in the middle. So this is just going to have an envelope in the middle of your signature. I'm just showing you how to do this just in case, it's something that maybe some of the beginners don't know. I know some people I saw on one post didn't like how the strings looked in the middle, and this is a good way to hide it if you don't like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sort through my papers, and I'm going to intermix my digital papers with my other papers. And I try and vary heights and the width of the papers and types of papers so that it adds interest. I look at what the page looks like next to it. All of those things come into account. I kind of count, like if I have 10 papers and then 5 other papers, that means I'll have approximately 2 pages of other than digital papers in between a digital paper. And that's just approximate. It's not a rule. It's just an approximate. And then I go ahead and get my envelope ready to go in the middle of my signature. And I kind of pay attention to what my middle signature will look like just because I think that always makes a statement. So now that I have my cover ready, I went ahead and sewed around it where we glued, and that makes it ready to go. So we're going to get our signatures ready to put in our journal. And what I do is I turn it toward me like this. I always go through it and kind of position my papers where I want it. Like if I have a shorter one, I kind of put it in the middle. Sometimes I put it toward the top. Sometimes I put it toward the bottom. I like it varied. I do not like all my papers the same. I think it lacks interest when everything's cut exactly the same. But if you want them all the same, you can certainly cut them that way. And, the big thing is make sure none of your papers are upside down at this point. And I'm lining everything up and just kind of going through and positioning my papers. And this is where if something doesn't look right to me, I'll move it around and, do something else. And like that one I had to turn over because it was upside down. And you will, sometimes you'll sew in a signature upside down, not the end of the world. Take it out, do it again. Not a big deal. You may do a signature and one of the pages is upside down. You can always leave it that way, or you can just tear that page out, or you can take the signature out and do it again. I usually just take the signature out and do it again. I don't find sewing in the signatures difficult anymore. I think it's pretty easy. Once you do enough of them, you'll realize how easy. A lot of the stuff that I'm showing you, I don't even do anymore. I don't necessarily always clip it. I don't always mark it. I use a ruler. I don't always make a template. But I'm doing these things for a beginner so that they can figure out a way to do it and be pretty precise and come up with a pretty nice journal. So again, I'm getting my second signature ready, making sure my pages are where I want them, and turning anything around that needs to be turned around. I usually always have one upside down paper or something in there that I have to turn around, and I do that. And this is kind of like the last look and see to see if I need to move anything. So So I got everything ready, going to get my envelope for my middle signature. And of course, you leave the envelope open. That's how you sew it in there. So and then we're going to put clips. I usually put one clip on one side. Then I turn it over and I put a clip on the other side. And I keep it folded as I'm clipping it. Because what that does is that makes the papers tighter in the middle. If you lay it flat, then you're going to have kind of bulging papers. You'll have a little bit of that, but when you keep it folded, your papers will stay tighter, okay? And you keep it in that at that angle. Now, a lot of people, when they do their journals, they use a cradle. I don't do that. I actually have found that this is pretty easy without it. So now that I've got my cover ready to go, what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and make a template. Well, first let's go ahead and get our stuff out ready to do our signatures. So we're going to go ahead and get them all ready. I'm going to show you this paper clip here. I have these large paper clips, and the really cool thing about them is they reach down really far. So maybe if you're new, you may want to get some of them. They're the really large ones. I don't know how long they are. I think they're probably about 3 inches. I use a long needle, and it is pointy, and that's because when I'm doing a one signature journal, I don't go through usually and punch the holes with an awl. I just sew it directly, and so I want it to be sharp. But an awl is just a pointy tool, and you can get them rather inexpensively. In fact, you can get a whole kit really inexpensively. So now what I'm doing is I'm making a template, and my template is going to be the size of my spine. So my spine is 1 inch by 8.5, and so I just basically took a piece of paper and did it 1 inch by 8.5. And now what I'm doing is I'm using my scoreboard, and I made a line in between at the 1/2 inch mark. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1/4 inch in the middle of that. So that means that's going to be 3/4 inch there and 1/4 inch on the other side. So basically 1/4, 1/2, and 3/4 is what I'm marking on my 1 inch, okay? And that's going to be a straight line so that I can make sure I line everything up and I line my places where I'm going to punch holes up. So now I'm using my ruler to find the middle of this. And basically you put, the 0 is where the middle is, and you want an even amount on each side, and then that gives you the middle. So I'm putting a dot on the line that I made with the scoreboard. You may not be able to see it well, but that's my folded line. I'm putting a dot there, and I went in on the equal amount on each side, a little over 1 inch, 1.25 inches. And I went ahead, so I will end up with 3 different dots. So I'll have 3 dots across 3 different times where I'm going to put my holes. And I always mark the top, even though I measured everything. If you're off the tiniest little bit and you don't do the top and you turn your template over, what'll happen is your signatures will be uneven when you put them in your journal. So this way, if you mark the top, then you always use it as a top, and if you're off 1 millimeter or so, then it won't matter, because, at least both your signatures will be the same. So what I do to punch my holes is I go ahead and I put my template on, and I'm punching the outer holes into my journal. So those are my outside holes. Those are for my signatures, a place for them to go into. And I punch down into my foam block. I don't have a book or anything. I don't even know where I got this foam. I think I got it from some packaging. So if you notice, I'm going through the outer holes, not the inner middle hole. And that is for each of my signatures to go in. So I'm punching them in there. So I have 2 lines of holes, okay? And they're both on the outside, not in the middle, on the outside. And what that does is that gives me about 1/4 inch on the outer part and 1/4 inch on the inner part, which is basically 1/2 inch for each signature. So now I'm going to take my signature and I'm going to put the top where the top is, top of my pages, and I'm going to clip those in. And this time I'm going to use the middle hole marking that we did, okay? Not the outer holes, the middle hole. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to punch holes in the middle, okay? So you're going to basically punch holes, and I did that without the foam there, but you want to, when you're punching these holes, you want to hold your pages tight as much as you can. And this is where people use a book to cradle it. I just kind of hold them that way and punch down into my my little spongy thing or whatever that foam is. I find I don't really need the cradle. I think it's kind of, a lot for me. I usually don't use that. But anyway, I'll show you again. Okay, now we're going to take our template and we're going to put the top on the top. And I'm measuring, lining this up with my longest page, which is 8.5. So then I know that we're in where we need to be. And I'm going to go ahead and put my clips on to keep it in place so it doesn't move while I'm doing it. And then again, I'm going to hold it and punch. And I'm punching in the middle, not on the edges. And you want your holes to go right on the edge. You don't want them to go on the side of your paper. You want it to go right on the fold line of your pages. Otherwise, your signatures will be crooked. Now I'm getting my string ready, and I go 3 times the length of my journal. And I use a wax thread. I think it's easier to use than anything else. You can get it very inexpensively. And as I said, you can buy little kits that are very inexpensive if you're new. It will have the awl, the needle, everything in it. So now I'm going to take my signature and make sure it's right side up because I have put them in upside down. You start in the middle, and I'm going on the outside holes that I have, and I go straight up through my signature pages and through the back of my journal. And now I either go to the top or the bottom. It doesn't matter which one you do. You just do it opposite the next time. You get to pick. And so now I've got that through. So then the last part that I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through the bottom or the top, depending upon where I started. You just do the opposite. And then I'm going to go back through the middle. And that's usually the only really tricky part, which if you keep it rather closed, you can pretty much get it through there. I kind of hold my journal to where it's in a V, and the page is in a V, and that lines up your holes really well. And if they don't line up, then that means that likely you're holding your pages weird. So if that happens and it looks like your needle's poking out somewhere else, then just take it out and redo it until you get it in there. Don't poke new holes. When you put this through, make sure that you do not put your needle through the existing thread that's there. If you do that, you will not be able to tighten up your strings. And if you ever see a loose journal, that's probably what they did. So now what I do is I loop my strings around, my loose strings around my existing strings in the journal, and I twist them the opposite direction. And what that does is it gives it leverage to pull the strings tight. And then I tie a double knot. That's usually always what I do. And I'm going to cut these off short because we have our envelope here. And then I just put a little bit of glue. And this is how you do it. You just put your envelope back together. Any envelope will work like this. You can even deconstruct an existing envelope and do it like that. So that is our first signature that we put in. And now we're going to put our second signature in. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. And I usually always have more string than I need. I put a paper clip on the end of my wax thread. And that is so my thread doesn't pull through as I am doing my signature. I still do that. I did it in the very beginning. I don't remember who I saw do that, but I just thought that was a very ingenious way, and it really does help a lot. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my needle and go through my middle of the other holes that we did, and I'm going to go ahead and go through the middle. then I'm either going to go through the top or the bottom. So I guess this time I just picked the top. So I'm going to go through the top and kind of hold my pages in a V, because what that does is it lines up your holes so that you're not punching through other pages. And it usually makes it very easy to pull through, okay? That's really the key. And keep your pages clipped until you're done and you're ready to tighten the thread. You do have to take them off to tighten the thread. Okay, so now I've gone through the bottom, and the only thing left to do at this point is the middle. So we go back through the middle and we're making sure we do not pierce the existing thread that's in there. And if you can see, there's my holes right there, and I'm going to hold my pages kind of at a V, and usually that means it's going to go right through, okay? And I make sure that I haven't pierced my other thread. I pull off my paper clip, and that is when I go ahead and tighten my threads. I take my clips off. You can't really tighten it with the clips on. Okay, so I noticed I had a couple of pages that I cut at the wrong width. So I'm taking a 1/4 inch off of those pages, and now everything is nice. I am going to be adding some trim to the edge of this. I usually always do that. Your pages are never going to line up perfectly because as you put pages in, they're going to stick out. But if they're sticking out a lot, like my Edith Holden ones were, I think I just cut those 5.5 instead of 5 1/4, so that was the issue. But you'll always have them a little off because of the nature of the way the journal is. But if you put too many pages in your one signature, that's when they're really going to stick out. So that's why it's important to learn how to do multiple signatures, and that way you won't have that issue. And anyway, I'm going to put this little trim on the edge. I'm putting it on the inside. I'm not sewing it. I'm just gluing it. And I'm going to put that on the other edge. And I kind of have decided I'm not going to add any additional trim. I like the brown zigzag showing, and you can see kind of the brown paper if you look at the top. So if you guys hear some thunder in the background, we're having a big storm here. So we need the rain, but we're having a big storm. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and decorate the front. And I have a bunch of little things here. I'm not sure what I'm going to use, but I have some burlap. I thought the burlap would look good. And I'm going to use it kind of as a background. And I'm going to be gluing all of this onto our little front area that we have. It's kind of like a little belly band that we made with our ribbon that goes around. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got these sunflowers. I definitely want to use that. And so I'm going to glue that in the middle. And I'm using my 3-in-1 glue for all of this because I want to make sure it stays on good. In fact, I used my 3-in-1 glue on most of my trim and my fabric and things like that, especially when I'm putting pockets and things on, only because I think it's a stronger glue. So now I'm kind of positioning things, deciding. These little pumpkins actually were like little toothpick things. And I was looking for pumpkins at this scale. I couldn't find any. And so I took these and I took off the pumpkin part. And then I have these little leaves. So I'm kind of deciding where I want to put those. Just kind of moving them around to decide before I glue anything. I have another little sunflower, but I decided that's too much. I'm not going to put that in there. And I'm going to go ahead and just put another leaf. And I've kind of made up my mind. I'm just going to go ahead and do it like that. I try not to spend too much time dwelling because when it comes to decorating the cover or a tag or whatever, I can spend enormous amount of time doing it. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. I'm kind of going to position it and then I'm going to glue it more. So I looked at those other sunflowers again. I bought them for this reason, but you know what? Sometimes it doesn't, you look at it and you go, no, not going to work. So anyway, I went ahead and put all the glue all the way around. Now I'm going to kind of glue it down a little bit more. I have that ruler underneath there because I put quite a bit of glue in the middle and I don't want it to seep through and glue my little belly band shut. So that's why that's there. And now I have this tag, and that's going to be part of my front cover. I will finish that tag up and add stuff to it, but probably just add backing. Now I have an extra scrap piece of paper. It's the same as the lining. And I'm going to go ahead and take that and kind of rip it to the side that I want it. And I want it kind of shabby. So the tearing gives me that rough edge that I like. So we're going to do that. And it's going to cover up my strings that I had on there. And it's going to add an additional decoration. So I'm going to put that on there. I think it'll be really cute. So, and again, I'm going to use my 3-in-1 glue on that. So anyway, this is only for decoration, but, you know, it does also reinforce the spine, but it's really mainly for decoration. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's all glued down really well on the edges. I usually put glue in the middle and then come back because you can't really judge before, and I don't usually put glue on the item that I'm gluing down. And now I'm looking for some lace or trim or something to put on there. First, I think I'm going to put some more burlap on there. So I cut some burlap and put that on there. And then I kind of don't like it. So now I decided I'm going to put some kind of lace on there. But I want it to look a little more shabby. So I'm kind of ripping it a bit on the edges. This isn't really super shabby, but I always like to add a little shabby into things I do. That's just my style. You know, everything I'm doing here is, you know, preference. So you can certainly do things your way. And that's just going to go in the middle. And that's only a decoration. So I'm wiping off the excess glue with my wipe. That seeps through. And I think that's dry. And I think everything turned out really good. So anyway, the next time what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of decorating on the inside and maybe make a few tags, etc. And then we will be done with this journal. Thank you for joining me. And hopefully next time I won't have issues with my audio and it can actually be a real craft and chat. Anyway, I think it's turning out really, really cute. And I hope that you got something out of this, and hopefully I'll see you again soon next time, guys. So I do think I'm probably not going to do a lot of decorating on this, but I will do a little bit, and we may even have the flip through next time. I do want this to look a little shabbier, so I did decide to go ahead and put just a little bit of vintage photo on the edges. Anyway, I'll see you again next time, guys. Take care. See you soon.